talk about Joe Mazzulla, the interim head coach of the Boston Celtics. The record kind of speaks for itself, but what do you think has been an assessment on his performance so far as a coach?
You got it, Gary.
I think he's done an outstanding job. I think he's getting more comfortable. I think he's developing a style. I think he's more confident. He's more open with us in terms of the media. He's got a good sense of humor.
Warmed up. Yeah.
He seems, he's not as like robotic and serious because obviously that was any of us, we get thrown in that situation, we're going to be like, hey, I ain't talking
to you not to get fired.
Yeah, I ain't talking to you media clowns. I'm trying not to get fired.
Y'all, we done yet?
Yeah, so I ain't got nothing for y'all. Hello, yeah, we're going to play hard and we're going to try to win. Thank you and good night. Now he's showing more personality. He's more comfortable in his role. He's trying new things. I think he's getting feedback from the players, and the players respect him. Like Marcus Smart said, after that, botched lob off the glass, like I got to be on my good behavior with Joe. And, and the guys were talking last night about how Joe was, yelling at him at halftime about getting things together. You're down 2 points and you're not playing well. Like, Joe has no problem getting in their ass about things. And so I give him an A, to be honest with you. They lost 2 games in overtime to Cleveland, who turned out to be a good club, and some of the little fourth order execution he could work on. And then they lost one legitimate game where they just turned it in a clunker. That was the Chicago game. And every team has had a clunker. Every team in the league has had kind of a head scratching loss. So you give him a break on that, but you also give him an opportunity to grow as a coach, which he's doing. Develop his own personality, get a good vibe around the organization too. I just think after the Ime stuff, there was a real negative vibe around the organization. People were uncomfortable. People were upset. And I'm not saying people have totally forgot what happened. That's going to take a long time, but I think there's a more positive atmosphere around the Celtics, and that's because of Joe.
Yeah, and to me, the biggest thing that he has been able to do is he has made all of what's happening right now with this team about him and the team. You don't feel as though there's this kind of residual Ime cloud hanging over the organization, which I thought was there at the very start of the season. He's starting to separate himself from his predecessor, which is not an easy thing to do, particularly when the guy that had the job before you came with 2 wins and winning a damn chip. So it's not the easiest hand, to play that he was dealt. But I give Joe a tremendous amount of credit for how he's handled this and how, as Gary pointed out, he hasn't been, a stick in the mud. I mean, and you could easily understand, even if you're the most outgoing, vivacious, chatty person, to be a little bit more kind of play it close to the vest, because 1, you're interim coach. 2, these guys had success with another dude who's nowhere around. And yes, you were around, but you weren't the guy calling the shots. And yet you're still comfortable enough now that you're in this new role to be you. And so I would give him an A as well, because of the way that he has handled the situation, the success that the team has had. And the one thing that coaches talk about all the time that you rarely can see play itself out before your eyes, are you making the guys better? Is Derek White a better player now than he was a year ago? Yeah. Grant Williams? Yeah. Jason Tatum? Yeah. Jalen? You start going down the line of why this team is 10-3, and damn near every player, you can point to something they're doing better than they did a year before. And as much as that is an individualistic type of thing, when you start seeing that trait with this guy and that guy and that guy and that guy, it ain't just about them. It's about the team. And if you're talking about what the team is doing better, you got to throw the coach in there. Just like when the team seemed like lost astray, a couple years ago, Brad Stevens had something to do with that. When the way that they seemed a little bit offset at the beginning of last season, Ime has something to do with that. The way that they're playing now as a collective group, and so many guys have shown growth and improvement from a year ago. Yeah, the head coach guy has something to do with that. So give Joe his props, man. He's earned the right to kind of flex a little bit. But the thing about Joe, and you talk to him, and Gary knows this too, he ain't about what we're doing now. He understands that it's all about that chip, because as much as we give Ime credit for coming within 2 wins of winning a chip last year, Joe was right next to him. Joe was on that same sideline. He knows what that looks like. He knows how close they came. And you better believe he's going to be thirsty to see what that championship taste truly feels like. So, yeah, it's great that they're off to this great start, but they've got a head coach who understands intimately what it means to not win that championship, to come so close to winning it. And I think that's part of what's driving him, is to just basically finish the unfinished business from a year ago.
And to your point, it's definitely a marathon, not a race. It's still an 82-game season. There's a lot of work to be done. So despite the success that he's had early on, what do you think he needs to improve on to have that longevity for this season?
In-game adjustments. I still think that he has some stretches where not as many as I thought he had the first couple of weeks, but just figuring out which buttons to push. And I'm curious to see not so much what you do against like Detroit and Washington. I want to see, what do you do against Milwaukee? What do you do against Brooklyn? What do you do against the teams that, if you are in fact having the kind of season that you anticipate having going into the playoffs, let's see what you're doing against the teams that you're going to have to get past in the playoffs. That to me is the mystery. And again, there's no way to know for sure how he's going to handle that other than seeing him go through it. And so to me, it's a little bit TBD as far as what he needs to get better at, other than the fact that making the most of those opportunities to beat the top tier teams in the East, which he hasn't really had a lot of practice with that. His adjustments in those type of games is what I'm really looking forward to seeing.